What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. The Indianapolis Colts, after their bye week, head to Arrowhead Stadium and face down the Kansas City Chiefs in a pivotal AFC matchup here. We wanted to bring on a special guest from Believe in Chiefs and also from Forbes Magazine as well. We have Jeff Bedoten joining us. Jeff, thank you so much for your time, man. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Glad to be here. We got a fun matchup here on Sunday.
We do, man. I'm excited to see this game because Colts and Chiefs haven't played each other for a couple of years, and I'm always excited to see how these matchups go and everything. So we're going to talk about that in just a second, guys. But before we do that, just want to say this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, guys, the Indianapolis Colts are actually not favored in this game, which is kind of crazy. Just considering the records right now, the Colts are 3.5-point underdogs right now. Jeff, I'm curious, how do you feel about that with Kansas City 5-5 right now, but favored according to FanDuel?
Yeah, Joe Valerio, the former Chiefs player, and my podcast partner and I were talking about this, that we think it's a little high. You know, the Chiefs, Vegas have been loving the Chiefs. We thought it was high last week when they were favored by 3.5 at Denver. I get it that the Chiefs get a bump, an Arrowhead bump, as they should, but I think I think the line is a little bit high. I'm not surprised that the Chiefs are favored. Vegas still thinks highly of them, but I thought it would be more of a 1.5, 2 line. You know, I think the Chiefs. This game is such a must win. I think they have a really good chance to win it. 3.5. That's pretty high.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't mind that the Chiefs are favored. I think it's just,
Right.
the 3.5 for sure. But yeah,
Exactly.
guys, be sure to go check that out over there on FanDuel and so many other things when it comes to this game and all the other games here for Week 11. But let's jump into this a little bit, Jeff, and talk about this game and just how you're feeling about the Kansas City Chiefs so far. I mean, it's kind of been an up and down season for Kansas City. You know, that 5-5 record. They've had some highs this year. They've had some lows this year. And obviously coming off a pretty heartbreaking loss against the Denver Broncos, a game that a lot of people were saying this is one of the bigger games of the year for Kansas City and Denver. So how are you feeling overall, man, just when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs so far?
Yeah, no, it has been a weird season, and it's really kind of flummoxed anyone who's evaluating the team via analytics, and because you kind of have to just for what's wrong with the Chiefs, you have to kind of just throw that out because you look at their average per play, how much they're giving up points wise, all that. It looks the same, if not better, than last year when they lost just one meaningful game before the postseason and then went all the way to the Super Bowl. This team, it's all about intangibles. They're making too many penalties. They're giving up big plays at the wrong time. They're losing all these one-score games that they won last year. They don't look like they're not. They used to be this last year. They were this tough, gritty team. They're just going to be more clutch. They're going to wear you down. This year, it's the complete opposite. So it's really you can't like point your finger. Oh, it's their run defense. It's their this. It's more of like an intangible thing that had kept them at 500.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The numbers have been pretty much the same as what you typically see, but obviously the record hasn't quite gone through that. I mean, do you think it's more of just like, some of the star players for the Chiefs are like starting to get older and it's wearing them down a little bit? I know that obviously you have weapons like Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I mean, let's be honest, they're not quite the explosiveness of a Tyreek Hill that you once had. I mean, what do you think has just kind of kept them from being able to finish these games out in games that they normally do?
Right. No, that's a great question, and the one that like Chiefs Kingdom is kind of obsessed with finding out. For the first question about the age, they are getting older. There's two guys. Is funny. Losing to the Broncos on just a last second field goal in Denver. There's really on the surface no shame in that. I mean, the Broncos are a really good team. It's a divisional game, but like what made that so tough is two of their older players, you talked about the age, had two of their best games. Kelsey's been pretty solid all year, but he had his best game. He was great. He led all players in receiving with 91. He had a vintage 21-yard touchdown. He hurdles a guy. He breaks another tackle. So he looked good. And the one guy that age seemingly has impacted is Chris Jones. He's 31, and he's been having a down year by his standards. He gets double teamed a lot, but he usually beats those, or at least beats them more than he has. But he had, by my count, 5 quarterback pressures. He had a sack. And so that's why that game is a little disheartening, is because they come out off a bye, and two of their aging stars had their best games of the year, and they still didn't win. So I do think age is a factor for those two players. Kelsey's had a pretty good year. He's going to end up with 1,000 receiving yards. He's had too many drops, so you wonder if maybe something's a little bit off there. Chris Jones really has had a down year. So those are the two things that age has impacted. Other than that, like, it's a little bit like, what is their – they're having a little bit of issues on defense with kind of – you can expose them the middle of the field with, like, tight ends. Their linebackers aren't great in coverage, but that's not a huge – that's a pretty small thing. We're talking about holes on the entire roster. Offense, they don't really have an identity. They keep trying to throw the deep ball. They're okay at it. They're not a running team. Who are they? Last year, what they were grinded out, but then you'd get to third down and you'd have the best quarterback, most clutch quarterback, Mahomes, bail you out. I don't think they know what they are now.
It's going to be interesting, man, because like you said, like Kansas City's been I've been watching, and just like you said, trying to get that deep game going, especially against Denver. Like, I watched at least one drive where they tried to do it at least 2 or 3 times on that drive and didn't have success. So it's kind of hit and miss there. But I'm kind of curious how you feel about this Indianapolis Colts defense in terms of the passing game versus this Kansas City offense, which, when you look at the yards, when you look at all the stats, it seems like Kansas City is right on track for what they've usually done. But Indianapolis now, they bring in Sauce Gardner a couple weeks ago. They're potentially going to get, Charvarius Ward back at the other side. And then they have Kenny Moore in the slot. And so I'm kind of curious how you feel about that matchup, which seemingly seems like a strength on strength right now. And what do you think is going to potentially, separate one of these units from the other there?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if Charvarius Ward does come back to face the former team who he spent most of his career with. That'll be an interesting matchup. And I think one of the interesting matchups of the Colts defense versus the Chiefs offense is Lou Anarumo. Like, he knows this Chiefs. He did as good a job as anyone as containing Mahomes when he's the Bengals defensive coordinator. They were talking on Wednesday of all the creative concepts and schemes that they'll have that they usually have for him, and that they're aware of this. That's going to be a great matchup. One thing that I do think could help the Chiefs is I think DeForest Buckner was your guys' best player on defense. He's another guy who gave the Chiefs fits even back in Super Bowl 54 when he was with the 49ers. So I think that not having him will affect things both on the run and with his interior pass rush. But yeah, that is going to – it's funny. Everyone's going to be talking about the offense, right? Because the Colts, you guys have the best offense in football right now. JTT, the Chiefs, obviously, you have Mahomes. But really that matchup of the Colts defense, that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I was just about to even ask that about Lou Anarumo and how that impacts you guys. Because, one of the few guys that knows what it's like to potentially hold your offense back a little bit in the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes for sure. Moving it over to our offense versus your defense, because I think a lot of people have been wondering about that. The last couple weeks, the Indianapolis Colts, they've had a lot of turnovers. I think that's what's caused a lot of people to have some concern, because the previous 8 weeks, the Colts were very rarely turning the football over. And then against the Steelers and then against the Falcons, you turned the ball over a grand total of 10 times in those 2 games. And, you were still able to come away with one win and almost beat the other. Obviously, we're going to be going up against a very well-respected defensive coordinator for you guys and Steve Spagnuolo. What do you think that he's going to be looking to try to do to slow down this Colts offense, which, as you said, it's one of the better offenses in the National Football League?
Yeah, and I think he might be the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, Coach Steve Spagnuolo. He's really great, and he's also really good at taking away what a team does best. Whether even though they got throttled in the Super Bowl, they actually contained Saquon Barkley, which really nobody else had done. They stopped when they faced the Lions earlier in the year. They stopped that really good two-headed running game. So I actually think they might do a solid job containing Jonathan Taylor. I'm actually the matchup we were talking about, Joe Valerio and I were talking about on our podcast, is again, the middle of the field, the Chiefs linebackers haven't been great in coverage. They really got exposed versus the tight ends versus the Buffalo Bills. So if they're all up to stop the run, I think Tyler Warren is going to be huge this game. I think he is the guy to watch. He could really exploit them. He needs to have a big game. And per your previous point, that I think that it's all about whether Daniel Jones has clean play that he had most of the season. If he plays like he did maybe the last couple games, like he did with the Giants when he would just too many fumbles, too many interceptions, obviously that's going to play in the Chiefs' favor. They have not been getting many takeaways. Defense, they've been protecting the ball on offense, the Chiefs. But so if they can get a takeaway or certainly lead in the giveaway takeaway ratio, they're going to be in good shape there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of curious because you talked about Jonathan Taylor and just what he's done this year for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, he has been the consistent, force on this Colts offense and making the engine of that offense go. And so, what do you think Kansas City needs to do to slow him down? Because, I mean, he's having a season unlike what we've seen in quite some time. Just the amount of times that, he's breaking off these big runs. Seems like he's almost due for one about every week now. And I think 5 games out of his 10 that he's now had, 3 touchdowns in. So what does Kansas City need to do in order to slow Jonathan Taylor down and, kind of like we said, force Daniel Jones into potentially having to play a little bit of hero ball?
Yeah, that's a great question of how you kind of contain him and stuff. And I don't know schematically exactly what you do. I just know that Coach Spags has been pretty good against. They had a streak. James Cook ran for over 100 yards against them. But before then, they had not allowed a 100-yard rusher in the regular season since Zamir White on Christmas Day of 2023. So they are like, it's funny. They're not, numbers-wise, they're not like necessarily the best versus the run or whatever, but they've been pretty good if a team has a top running back of containing them, at least not letting them wreck the game plan, whether that's Derrick Henry or Jahmyr Gibbs or whoever. So I'm not sure how he's going to do it, but I think they'll have a plan in place. Their linebackers are pretty good. Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil is also good. Drew Tranquil should be the one who's good in coverage because he was a former defensive back in college. Chenal and Bolton, as good as they are, they're in coverage, they're just okay. And I think that's been kind of the issue in the middle of the field. But they are really sure tackles, very physical, so they could help in run support against Taylor.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Shane Steichen approaches this and Cody, I kind of want to get your opinion on this too. It's a great question of how is Shane Steichen going to approach this? Because obviously the last few weeks, the Indianapolis Colts, they have continued to try to be aggressive, push the ball down the field. And, it hasn't really resulted in the Colts doing well offensively. The last few weeks against the Falcons defense, which blitzes you a lot. And of course, with the Steelers that changed their defense the first time this season, and it seemed to work against this Colts offense, we've been turning the ball over a lot. And so I'm curious because obviously Steve does a lot with, different blitz packages. He likes to mix things up and throw different looks at you that confuses teams. I mean, should we be more conservative and, attack the middle of the field as you suggested, Jeff, or is or is Steichen going to continue to remain aggressive? Because we know how confident he is in his play calling ability and being able to exploit things. I mean, how do you guys feel about what they should do?
Yeah, right. I think that you have to keep things varied, and you do have to still. The other thing is you still have to go. The Chiefs have given up. The middle of the field has been kind of the issue for them, not the bomb plays, not necessarily like short yardage, but you guys have some guys who can stretch the field too with Alec Pierce that you've got to challenge. I think you've got to keep it varied. You've got to attack the middle of the field, the flat, the screens, obviously use Taylor, but don't forget about the deep ball guys that you have like Alec Pierce to further stretch the defense there.
Gotcha. Okay, so if that's kind of the blueprint for the Colts offense, so what about the Colts defense? Like if there's a blueprint that I would say this is how you need to attack this Chiefs offense to find success, what would you say, Jeff, in terms of what's the blueprint for the Colts defense to potentially slow down this Kansas City offense?
Well, one thing that they need to do is they need to do a contained rush. Mahomes has not been the last couple games. He's been bothered a little bit by pressure, but he is so elusive. So just you have to have a very disciplined rush against him. If you lose contain, if you go out of your rush lanes and just pin your ears back, he's going to rush for yardage, or he's going to elude you and he's going to throw and he's going to find the guy deep down the field. So I think that's the thing to do. That's the key. The other thing is, I would say Kareem Hunt has been excellent on short yardage. Isaiah Pacheco should be back for this game too, but one of their issues is they spent all this money on Creed Humphrey. Trey Smith is the highest paid guard in the NFL. At least he was when he signed his extension. And they don't run the ball enough. So I would play the pass, and I would dare them to run and see if they're willing to run. That's what the last several teams have done. There is space to run the ball, and the Chiefs just refuse to. They keep throwing the ball. And I think that's a big reason why they've been 5-5 is just like, if I were the Chiefs, if I were the coaches, I'd run the ball more, run the ball, and then those key third downs, then you go to the best player in the game, Mahomes. So that's what I would do. Contained rush and, play the pass. A lot of guys in coverage, dare the Chiefs to run the ball.
Yeah, it's funny. Sorry, Darren. I saw a stat the other day just about Patrick Mahomes and zone coverage versus man coverage, and a lot of people saying, if Charvarius Ward comes back, play a lot more man. Is that something that you would see if you're Lou Anarumo? You say, hey, Sauce Gardner, Charvarius Ward, you guys man coverage here, and we kind of force Mahomes to do what he hasn't done super well this year, at least according to the stats. Would you play more of that man coverage this week?
Cody, that's an excellent point, and something I should have made. And I'm sure Coach Anarumo is going to mix up coverages, but yeah, I would definitely play more man, especially if Charvarius is back with Sauce now back. They have had more trouble, the Chiefs, versus man than they have had with zone. Especially a guy like Kelsey is really he's a zone buster. He just knows how to get open in space.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows who's going to be guarding Kelsey during
Right.
this? Because our linebackers are so bad in pass coverage. Doesn't matter what you do. I don't know if we'll get our linebacker Jalen Carlies back this time around. He was a safety that transformed into a linebacker, and he's just a guy that's much better in pass coverage than Zaire and whoever else is going to be out there for us, but he's just getting back off IR. I don't know what his snap count will look like going into it, but I guess only other thing before we do predictions is special teams units. How is your special teams overall looked? Because I mean, again, Vegas odds are it's going to be within one score. It could very well come down to that last thing here. So how has the kicking been? How has the punt and kick return coverage been?
It's not been good. Dave Tobe is one of the best coaches, special teams coordinators in the NFL, but the Chiefs haven't been good on special teams. And that's another reason when you're looking you crunch the numbers, why aren't the Chiefs better? They look it's the hidden yards, it's the penalties inopportune times, and it's the special teams. Against the Broncos, they missed a key extra point. They allowed a long return by Marvin Mims. The Broncos pinned them back every time. So it has not been good. Bucker was missing field goals early in the year. He seems to have gotten that under control. Of course, they had the blocked extra point against Denver. So that is an area that they can exploit. The Chiefs don't have like they haven't had like a great return all year. So that is a place that the Chiefs need to improve on, and a potential area that the Colts could expose on Sunday.
Gotcha. Well, I think the last thing that I have, Derek, unless there's anything else, we're going to get score predictions here. So, Jeff, we'll let you, since you're our guest, we'll let you give your score prediction for this game, and then Derek, and then I'll round it out.
I really like the Colts team. I think you guys are going to do some damage this year, but I think this is such a must-win for the Chiefs. I think they're at home. On the road is where they really have the issues. They're 1-4 on the road. Home, they've only lost the one game to the Eagles. But I think we go – again, I think that line is too high. I'm going 30-27 Chiefs in this game.
Okay. I think I said earlier in the week, I think I said 28-24 Colts here. I think both teams will get what they want offensively for a good chunk of this game. But yeah, I think the Colts can do it. I think that Jonathan Taylor will be able to do what he needs to do. And I think Steichen, given the extra week to prepare for this game, definitely helps.
I can see that.
I'm going to go a little bit low scoring here. I'm a little bit more low scoring, not necessarily low scoring, but I'm going to go 23-20 Indianapolis. I really do think it's going to come down to who has the ball, near the end, or maybe a few special teams plays, because like you said, Kansas City has struggled in those departments. And honestly, Jeff, a big reason why the Colts beat the Falcons, in Berlin is because of their special teams, because they had a massive return there near the end of regulation that helped them get down and kick that field goal. So I do think that kind of stuff, like you said, that does matter. And I think the Indianapolis Colts, they struggled early on in the year with some of that stuff, but I think they've definitely turned it on in terms of coverage and return. So I think it's going to be a very close game, like you said. I think it's going to be within one score easily, but I'm just going to go Indianapolis just because they've given me little reason to pick against them this year. So I'll go Indianapolis here, but I really do appreciate you, Jeff, for your time taken out of your busy schedule. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and find your work?
Well, thank you. It was fun being on here. And you mentioned the Germany game. Another reason the Colts won that game. I mean, Indiana Jones doesn't lose in Germany. I mean, that we all know that.
Yeah.
I was actually going to tweet something about that, but I couldn't. Like, one, I forgot, and I couldn't think of a way to phrase it where it wasn't like offensive, like potentially offensive.
Yeah,
Germany's fighting Germans or something like that. So this is the proper venue.
I know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Check out my stuff on Forbes.com. The name is Jeff Fedotin, Fedotin. You can find all my Chiefs writing there, or follow my podcast. That's Believe in Chiefs, BLEAV in Chiefs, with my partner, former Chiefs offensive lineman Joe Valerio. He actually played. He said another important thing about this matchup. There's a lot of history there, and Joe, I think, said his toughest loss. He was on that team, the Lynn Elliott game that lost, I think, 10-7 in the divisional playoffs to Jim Harbaugh and the Colts. These teams have met in the playoffs a lot, and a lot of heartbreak for the Chiefs, particularly that one, because that was a 13-3 team that had home field advantage. There was also the Andrew Luck comeback game when they came back from, I think, 28 down. There was no punt game against Peyton Manning. The Chiefs got them the last time in the playoffs when Mahomes and Luck were the starters. But, yeah, this matchup, there's a lot of Colts-Chiefs history.
Real quick before I let you go, a funny thing about that Andrew Luck game. So I was watching that game and y'all were blowing us out, and I left. I left my house. I was like, okay, well, I'm not watching the remainder of this game.
Yeah.
I left. I went to a school event, and I'm just sitting watching this sporting event, and then my dad is blowing up my phone and saying, dude, they won. I'm like, you're joking with me. There's no way that we just came back from 28 or 27 down to be able to win this game. And then I quickly checked the ESPN app, and sure enough, we did. And I'm like, I left the event right away and I went back home and I rewatched the recording of it. And I'm like, there is no way. How in the world? And I rewatched it like 3 or 4 times that night because I could not believe what I was watching.
Crazy.
You can tell the age of Chiefs fans by how their beliefs. If somebody's in their 20s or maybe early 30s, they go into every playoff game. Oh, we're going to win. We have Mahomes. That's what he does. Fans of an older generation are used to those games when the Chiefs always would snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in the playoffs. Man, they had a rough playoff history before Mahomes. So
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeff, really appreciate your time, man. Good luck on Sunday, but we like to tell our guests not too much luck because Colts got to keep up in this wild AFC right now, man. They got to get to those 9 wins because, man, I tell you what, New England, Denver, they're looking great right now, record wise. So I really do appreciate it, man. We'll have to do it again soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it. And shout out to FanDuel, guys. Be sure to go check them out for this game and every game in Week 11. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. And as always, go Colts.